Pull up a chair, the stories begin. Patrick and Randy are letting you in. From the desert lights where the big names are, it's big conversations, Little Bar. Athletes and dreamers, stars of the screen, leaders and builders, and all in between, sharing their journeys, how they've come this far. It's big conversations, Little Bar.
Welcome to Big Conversations, Little Bar, the Coachella Valley's favorite podcast. Recorded live at Skip Page's Little Bar in Palm Desert. Get ready for another fascinating hour of meeting people who make the desert city such a spectacular place to be. Now, nestled in their corner booth perch, well lubricated and raring to chat, here's Patrick Evans and Randy Florence.
All right, thank you very much. We are back here at Skip Page's Little Bar, and we are located in the coveted corner booth for another edition of Big Conversations Little Bar. My name is Patrick Evans. I'm joined by my renowned mentalist and and I hear fantasy football coach extraordinaire Randy Florence.
Yes, well, I'm not coach extraordinaire. Thank you for that. I had my fantasy football draft this weekend with my son.
Yeah,
12 teams. And I drafted 12th.
Oh.
I have drafted last each of the 3 years since I won the leagues.
Oh.
So there's definitely some sort of conspiracy taking place.
It's more fantasy than football anymore. Like, you know, they get points away for weird stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you get points for an interception. No, you don't. Not unless you run it in. Like, so it's more like Dungeons and Dragons with football players, so I gave up on it. It is delightful to see you, but more importantly, you must be very happy to see me with your brand new eyeball.
Yeah, I mean,
cataract surgery
let's
went well.
say that I can see very well.
That's good.
Yes, it's good to see you. It's actually pretty interesting because I'm seeing better out of the eye that I had the surgery on now than the other eye. So sounds like I'll be doing this again soon.
Well, isn't it buy one get one free? When did you get that deal?
I got 4.
Oh. Okay, well, that's weird. But
I don't really want to talk about the other 2.
Speaking of doctor's procedures,
yes.
It brings us right to our guest, and he is renowned surgeon Dr. Patrick St. Pierre, the best shoulder guy perhaps in the world.
Well,
but certainly around here, around these parts, if you need shoulder work.
I like to think I'm in the upper echelon around the world, but it's been a long time, and I love the shoulder, so it's been good.
Well, welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us. We met before I actually needed your services. I have seen you, but I know that Randy's wife, did you get a buy one, get one free from?
His hands have all been all over Kay over the last few years. No, we did not get any kind of a frequent customer discount or anything like that.
Well, I think once you've had both done, that's it.
That's it.
I tried to do that, but Eisenhower won't go along.
No, they won't.
A punch card, that'd be nice. Come back and see me, and we'll give you 10% off on
I will tell you what we heard from everybody was there's only one place that you want to have this done with, and that's Dr. St. Pierre. As a funny story, I'm walking down El Paseo 4 or 5 months ago early in the morning to get a cup of coffee, and there's 2 people walking in front of me. The guy in front of me has like the biggest forearms that I've ever seen.
I know who that is.
And I walk past him and I turn around and it's Steve Garvey. And the reason I turned around is because the woman that was with him says, "Oh, I've got Dr. St. Pierre next week."
Well, Steve, I don't think he minds, but I've done both his shoulders as well. But my punch card is you get 2 and don't come back.
There we go.
Because we want these 2 to work.
We're not coming back.
Don't come back.
Well, the other great thing about Dr. St. Pierre is that we could probably do an hour show on several different segments of his life.
He is one of those guys. You are so good at so many different things, and a lot of us struggle to be good at just one thing. But you are just really not just a jack of all trades, but a master of several, including your sommelier work. You are a Class 4 sommelier, is that correct?
Yeah, level 4 sommelier, diploma from the WSET.
Wow.
Are we going to start off with that?
Yeah, I think yes. Because honestly, between shoulder surgery or drinking wine, I know which one I'd rather spend my time doing. Now, we will work with the shoulder stuff first, because I'm kind of curious. Obviously, you started out in the orthopedics field. How did you specialize? It seems to me like it's one of the most complicated joints in the body.
Right, but it took me a while to get there, and there is a story to it. So So originally I went to the military academy at West Point, and I was an infantry officer, and I did airborne school, ranger school. I learned how to kill people before learning how to fix them. Then I decided that medicine was really where I wanted to be, and then so I went to medical school. And going through medical school changed a number of things, but the driving factor was my mom had heart disease and died at a very young age. She died at 53. And I was really convinced I was going to be a cardiologist. And then I did some rotations, and I did a rotation at Walter Reed Medical Center in D.C., and this is the early cath days, and the cardiologist was smoking cigarettes in the office
During surgery.
And back then you could do that. And then, so I was there with a Georgetown medical student, and she had asthma, so he made her stand outside the room and present to him. And then the patients, back then, especially because we know so much more about the heart now and exercise and diet. But back then it was like, the patients would be smoking and not eating. And then, they come in and they blame the cardiologist for the disease. So, and then the next rotation, I went to West Point, where I graduated from, but has a renowned sports medicine program. And I spent a month there taking care of cadets and doing surgery. And that was when ACLs were first coming out. And I said, okay, I'm hooked. So that was the orthopedic part of it. But then even in orthopedics, there's so much subspecialty. We know there's hands and total joints, and especially at Desert Orthopedic Center, we're set up like a university setting. So we have specialists in spine and sports and pain and shoulder and elbow. And so that when you come in to see us, you're not getting someone who, does it once a month. You're getting somebody who's a real specialist. So that's intriguing. And I've always wanted to be not so much the master, jack of all trades, but, to be really good at what you do. It was just by luck that I went to do my fellowship, and I had to do a research year at Walter Reed at the Army Institute of Research. And that was my first year. And then the second year was going to go back to West Point to do sports medicine. I got there and I had to do a research project. And the guy at Walter Reed, another shoulder sports guy, he had just finished trying to do a rotator cuff repair protocol, and he did it, and you have to do it in animals first,
Right.
So he tried rabbits, and the problem is you would cut the rotator cuff, repair it, and you're trying to look to see how it heals to the bone. That was the whole premise.
Is this the Tommy John?
No. But we
Okay.
can talk about Tommy John.
Okay.
Isn't that more elbow than shoulder?
It is elbow.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Come on,
So,
Randy.
yeah. But Tommy John had a bad shoulder.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So,
Plus he was left-handed,
so I know Tommy. He's a great guy.
but he was a Dodger. So anyway.
Yeah, well, so is he. Around here, you got to like the Dodgers, So.
No.
All right. So anyway, back to this. So he just done the study in rabbits. The problem was the rabbits would eat their cast, and then they would then concentrate on procreation, and it really just didn't work out as a really good model. So then I went to a research meeting.
And by the way, ever since my wife's surgery, no,
She ate her cast first, though. And then
that's right.
Yeah. So then I went to this conference, and I talked with a guy from Michigan State he's a vet, but he is the number one guy. His name's Steve Arnosky in orthopedics for animal research. So I told him our dilemma and what I was looking at. He said, well, you should do it in goats because the goats have two heads to their supraspinatus, which is the top rotator cuff muscle. So you cut one, you leave the other one, it acts as a splint, and then you repair the other and you can study it. So I did that study at Fort Detrick, Maryland, which is it's like the infectious disease place, but they had a large animal farm. And so I did a study, and and I proved what actually had been thought to be dogma, that we had to make a big hole in the bone to get it to heal. And I compared that to just repairing it to the hard bone. And I won a number of awards for that. So that sent me in the shoulder track. So it's kind of what we were talking about before. Sometimes in life you think you're supposed to go this way, but life pushes you this way. And you should just follow it, right? Yeah. So don't fight it. And so I did. And then shoulder became something really interesting, and I loved it. And so then it took off from there.
Well, this is a long story with a lot of turns and twists as you did different things. Where did it all start? Where were you born?
So I was born at Walter Reed. So my dad was in the Air Force, and very interesting guy. So he was in the Air Force. He joined right at the end of World War II and didn't get to go, but then went to Korea. And he didn't even have a high school degree. He lied about that. Somehow he got through, and then he got a GED. And when he retired from the Air Force 26 years later, because he scored really well and they slotted him as a meteorologist, he ended up with 2 bachelor's degrees and 2 master's degrees. So he set a great example, although I didn't see him very much because he's working and studying. But he just had a great career. I mean, when I was a little kid, we were living in Andrews Air Force Base, and he was a code breaker underneath the Arlington Girls' School. So in the basement underneath this girls' school is where they had all the computers trying to intercept stuff from the Russians and different things. And of course, I never knew about it. I mean, he
couldn't tell you that.
He wouldn't tell me till after I graduated from West Point. I mean, he was like, shut, right? So, but he did that. We lived in Japan for 3 years, and he's calling in the weather reports. He's a meteorologist.
Yeah.
We shared that. And to the pilots in Vietnam. And then the other interesting story about it is we went to the movie The Bridges, which is about the U-2 that got shot down and by Powers. Right? Yep. And he said, hey, we're walking out. He says, I remember calling in weather reports of Powers. He was a good guy.
Oh, man.
Probably not that night, but, definitely within the career.
That's still a pretty cool story.
Yeah, so that really is what pushed me into, West Point. And I set a great example for working hard and doing well.
Assume the parents were happy with your choice to go into the military at that point?
Yeah, more my dad than my mom.
Yeah.
Because my mom had seen a lot. My older brother is also a meteorologist in the Air Force. Oh. So, and after 2 guys in the Air Force, I definitely couldn't go in the Air Force. And so I had to go to West Point instead. But all good choices. It was great.
Yeah. Was there any problem at Thanksgiving when you were discussing West Point and the other choices that your Air Force brethren had made?
Yeah, the Air Force Army game is always a big, even though he didn't go there, but that's always a big discussion. It's always fun.
I came from an Air Force and Navy family, so
I'm sorry to hear that.
There we go.
You walked right into that one.
Walked into
that one. But you had already done your Army. You had already gone through West Point before you decided on a medical career.
Right. So and that's part of it was the transition at West Point. So when I got there, there was still a medical program, and then it got shut down because there's a lot of Army guys. The old Corps general officers, infantry, armor. I said we shouldn't be graduating doctors, and we should just be building war fighters. And so that was in the 70s, so late 70s. And so it got shut down for 2 years, but in my junior year, they changed it back. And they said, well, we're going to allow either 1% or 2% to go. So I said, well, I'm still thinking about it. But so I changed concentrate my major. We didn't really have majors, but I changed my prerequisite courses so I could go to medical school. And then, I did well at West Point. I was a leader and I was a commander. So like all the tactical officers and the people who were your mentors are saying, nah, you can't, don't be a doctor. You need to go in. You're a leader. You need to go do that. So I chose the infantry. I went to Korea for a year. I spent 6 months on the DMZ in Korea, leading combat patrols and putting out live ammunition and trying to catch the bad guys. And, but then at the end of that year, I knew that I wanted to switch back to medicine. And then, so I switched my next assignment from the 82nd Airborne to the Old Guard in Washington, D.C. So I got accepted there, and I just barely, because you have to be 6 foot tall, I just barely made it. And like all the soldiers are all 3 inches taller than me. And but that was great because I thought I was going to have enough time to take the MCATs and to get into medical school. So I tried. I was on the DMZ in Korea, and signed up for the MCATs, and I went to Seoul. And so I'm studying in a tent with one little light, and trying to read whatever I had. And then I get to Korea, and there's only 2 other guys, and I don't think they spoke English. So I said, at least I got a good chance out of this room. But anyway. So,
how old were you at that point?
So I graduated from West Point 21.
So what was that experience on the DMZ like?
It was good. Guys come, it was right after Vietnam.
Right.
And we would go out in trucks, and we would make a lot of noise, and they made us make a lot of noise. And then we'd go set up, like a little perimeter, and we were right next to the Imjim River. And one time I tracked a guy on the Imjim. We found footprints, but we never caught him.
Wow.
But but it was, you're thinking, oh wow, this is really real life. This is like Vietnam, type of thing. But then when a couple of us wanted to do long range patrols and spend days in the DMZ, they wouldn't let us do that. Because the purpose of us being there was to take a bullet and to involve the United States in case North Korea came across. We weren't really there to defend or to do anything. Right. So they didn't want us going in there and causing more problems. And I get it now, but I didn't then.
Right.
I wasn't that happy back then.
Your military career lasted 20 plus years?
24 years. So I retired as a full colonel. And so the good thing was being able to do all that infantry stuff ahead of time gave me much more credibility with the soldiers.
Oh, I bet.
As a medical doctor. Because a lot of them would come in, they think they're going to, okay, I'm going to, scam this guy and get like 3 months off, and then they come in and I'd have all my Ranger tab and all the rest. I said, no, buddy, you're gonna play the game. So
this isn't even close to being a complete list. The military awards for Dr. St. Pierre: a parachutist badge, Army Commendation Medal, Meritorious Service Medal, Order of Military Medical Merit, and a member of the Presidential Honor Guard.
Oh, you left out Legion of Merit. That's
did I leave that out? Dang it. We'll get you back for another episode.
And Pathfinder School. And,
Yep.
And Ranger School, too. That's probably the biggest one.
What was that like?
Well, so Ranger School, just like SEAL School and some of the other elite type of thing, you're trying by sleep and food deprivation to create enough stress to mimic war, because you're not getting shot at. Right, you may be doing some things, but so that stress is not there. So the stress is, then you go to bed at 11 and waking you up at 2 and running you and doing stuff. And I remember when you're on patrol, you'd only have one meal, so you would have to ration that out. And but when you're in barracks and you're doing the training, you would go in for lunch. There'd be a line, you go pick up your tray, you get the food, you get just one spoon, and then you get in line to leave. So you don't ever sit down. You just go, grab your food, eat it, and then leave. And that's what you do. But it's all just induced stress. And there were, and the bad thing, sometimes people don't do well. We had a person die like 2 sessions before mine. So when we did a one rope bridge river cross, so we crossed a river, and you have to go by a rope, so you got to take all your stuff off and put it into a waterproof thing, and someone has to swim the rope across and then tie it on to the tree. So, unfortunately, I was a distinguished graduate from the infantry basic course right before that, so I got to swim the rope and then get back in the water, and the water was 45 degrees.
Oh.
And
that's just not acceptable.
Yeah. So because of the incident before, so after we all got across, they built us a bonfire and they gave us another candy bar.
Oh. Wow.
So that we could get a little bit more nutrition and survive.
Here's a Kit Kat to stay alive.
Well, that's right.
But once you complete Ranger School, and I know it's the same for all the other elite schools in the Air Force, the Series School, and certainly SEAL School, in Coronado, you know that when you've done that, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Because your mind is strong enough that you can get through it.
Have you called that back at any point in your future life as a surgeon or anything?
I don't think I've ever thought back to it. I think it just is building blocks.
Yeah.
It just builds you to be more confident.
My self-esteem is dropping so quickly.
Well, actually, the good news is we are going to have you swim the rope across the river later.
Awesome. That's good for everybody else, not for me.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Those kinds of experiences, when you're in the midst of it, incredibly stressful. Was there ever a point where you thought, I don't think I want to even finish this?
Well, I'm not, and that happens because people do drop out of these things, right? But I remember one time, it's the middle of the night, and the stress, and the hard part about Ranger School is you'll be on a patrol, and they do different size patrols as you build up, but you're leading, and then you're leading 15 other guys, and they're all exhausted, and they're not motivated because they're not getting graded. So you have to motivate your peers. Now, part of it's peer because they want you to do it when they're in the leadership position too. But that's really hard. And I remember one night, it's 2 or 3 in the morning, pitch dark. You can barely see in front of you, and you're watching on the back of their hat. There'd be these little reflectors so that you don't get lost. You have to keep walking behind them. But I thought, somebody pushes me into this, off the trail and into the bushes. I'm there. It'll be over. I have no energy, but you just do one step at a time and just fight your way through it.
It probably hasn't happened to him as a surgeon.
No,
but there are interesting things that happen as surgeons. So,
I would imagine at some point, like some of those, just the built-in skills that you drew from that experience did come in handy in your surgeon life.
Yeah, I think so. And again, I think it's more of a building block. It's not like I'm in a surgery and something comes up and I'm thinking back to Ranger School.
Right.
That I guarantee. But I think the confident, so if bad things happen, in surgeries, it's not the downgrade automotive mechanics, but you can't go get another part. You can't just say, well, right. I'll do it again. You're set there, and complications do occur even to the best surgeons. So if you get more bleeding than you expected, you get something that goes awry, you need to be able to stay cool, calm, and collected and deal with it, and get everybody, get you through it, but also get the rest of your team. And where surgeons fail is when they get too excited, you start, blaming people around you, or just getting out of the moment. Because we all know that we're golfers, right? Blowing up on the golf course never helps, right? So same thing in the operating room. You got to stay cool, calm, and think of what the next step is, and be prepared to deal with that. So I think that's where it all came. Yeah.
You had to deal with that as a meteorologist?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
People get mad if you tell them, stuff they don't want to hear.
This would have helped me.
Or if the forecast doesn't work.
Well, it's usually me that's yelling at you about the forecast.
Well, you're just mad it's hot.
I'm wondering why we can't go to Celsius and make it cooler. Doesn't that make sense to everybody?
No.
No.
Shoot.
But he doesn't have to get it right all the time. So, that's the thing.
Good point.
It is. It's a lot less stressful than being a shoulder surgeon. I suspect that.
Was there ever any thought of making military lifetime?
Well, it was. 24 years is a lifetime.
Yeah. So
I knew I didn't want to go any further.
Right.
We were in the middle of Afghanistan and Iraq, and I'd done my time. I felt, I was ready to move. Plus,
if you had stayed in, what would have been the next step for you?
But that's the problem. So I was already a full colonel, and to be a general, you have to give up practice of medicine to be a leader. You have to become the hospital commander, or you become more of an administrator than a surgeon, or whatever your practice is. And I just enjoyed what I did too much. And then the other pressure is that because when you're after 24, you're in your late 40s. So if you don't start making a move, nobody's going to want you. So and you still have 20 more. I've been here 17 years here after getting out. Actually, even a couple more years after I got out, I stayed in Virginia for a couple years before coming out. So you still have a whole nother career to do after that career. And if you prolong it, then you're not going to get the type of jobs or things that you want to do. So
that makes sense.
What made you decide to come to the desert after you retired from the military and wanted to continue this practice?
Well, that's a good question, because my wife was from Virginia. I retired out of Walter Reed, Fort Belvoir, and we lived in Alexandria, Virginia.
Really lovely spot.
Yeah. Actually, we bought Sonny Jurgensen's home.
We're seriously?
No way.
Yeah. So that's another long
That's
story.
so cool.
I'm not sure we have enough time, but my wife is a builder, so she renovated the whole house. I don't think I've ever been in a house that's not undergoing renovation. So. So that was great. I really thought, I picked out the oak tree that I was going to get buried under. It was, we were right next to Mount Vernon on the river. And we loved it, but the practice wasn't right. It was, it was kind of a family-owned thing. And a lot of the things that I wanted to do to kind of push things along just very quickly became unattainable with the group that was there. So I had to have hip arthroscopy. So I had cam impingement, which is a common thing for hips in athletes. And I would go every to, every meeting, I'd always go to one of the hip arthroscopy things, and I'd watch them do their surgery. I'd say, no, they're not ready for me yet. And then, but eventually they did. So I had a good friend.
I wonder if a mortician ever does that.
No, they're not ready.
No, they're not ready for me yet.
Every day, I'm sure they drive by, I think.
So a good friend of mine at SCOE at Southern California Orthopedic in Van Nuys, Carlos Guanche, does hip arthroscopy, and then finally, I was ready, he was ready. So I came out here in December to have my surgery so I could recover over Christmas and go right back to work on the 3rd or 4th of January, because we're just kind of crazy like that. So, but I came out and stayed with them. I went to the SCOE Christmas party the night before my surgery to make sure he got home on time, and plus they were all my friends. So then had my hips scoped that the next day, had both of them done at the same time. And then
so what's that surgery like?
Well, it's an arthroscopy, so they're shaving down the bone. And I've had a lot of orthopedic type of, so I watch a lot of my surgeries. So I've watched that. I don't get any pre-meds or anything, so I'm talking to the surgeon. And so they did the first one, I didn't feel a thing. Then they did the second one, and now I'm watching on the screen. I see the burr on my femur, and I can feel it in my hip. And I say, well, you got to. So I asked the anesthesiologist to give me a little booster, but I think the catheter had shifted or something. It didn't really help. So I said, all right, Carlos, you got 10 more minutes. Let's get out of here, And then,
Oh, man.
so then I was done. So, but you don't want to fly right back to D.C. after having that, because there's an increased risk of a clot or DVT, so I didn't want to do that. And so a good friend of us said, I just bought who's in Orange County, another sports guy. So I just bought a house or condo out at the lakes, and why don't you stay there for a week? So we came out to the lakes and stayed here through Christmas, flew back to D.C., and 2 days later, maybe 3, a headhunter called and said, I got this perfect job for you. There's a spot that's opened up at Desert Orthopedics because the sports medicine shoulder guy is leaving, and that was Dr. Reber, and so here it is. So I said, well, God's sending us a message, we're right there.
Yeah.
So that's what led to us coming out here, and it worked out pretty well.
17 years?
17 years. Yeah, it was 2008. Yeah.
Wow. How much of your practice is sports-centric?
So originally when I got here, it was all about sports. And so the opening, BMP was here. High schools weren't covered with COD. Steve Steele was here, the primary care doctor, doing sports medicine. So we teamed up and started doing all those things. So I took care of Palm Desert High School, COD, the tennis tournament. And then through the years, and I realized very quickly that we were building and I needed help. So Dr. Matt Diltz applied to come out here a year later. And I knew there was so much shoulder that needed to be done, and that's where my research had taken me. So I thought, well, I can bring Matt out, and he'll do the lower extremity sports, and I'll do upper extremity. And that worked out for a long time. I mean, so probably another 8 to 10 years before we brought in another sports guy. Now we have another sports guy because I'm leaving. And then we built the shoulder. So at the time, in 2008, I was the only person doing sports and shoulder and elbow, and now we have, including me, 3 shoulder elbow guys, and
so when you retire, the Valley's going to be okay.
We still have 2 shoulder and elbow guys and 2 sports guys.
We don't have to find you.
No.
All right. So
Don't track me down.
You mentioned elbow. What is the Tommy John surgery? What do you actually have to
That's
do?
in the elbow. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Thank you.
It's not the shoulder.
Thank you, Dr. Florence.
Well, actually, there's a healthy living article on Tommy John surgery that I did on a young lady here who was a high school wrestler. Dad and brother were wrestlers, and she's wrestling her brother, and he torqued her arm like this and tore the ligament that's right here. So that's what happens in Tommy John. So with repetitive force on the inside of the elbow, with the pitching motion, and especially with curves, sliders, sweepers, those things, they put a lot more stress there, and then that ligament stretches out or tears. Okay. And Tommy was with the Dodgers at the time. Dr. Frank Jobe made up the surgery. I mean, it was the first one that's ever done. So, Tommy, who lived here for quite a while, now he's on the East Coast, we had lots of discussions about it. I played golf with him, and so this young lady came in, and I did a Tommy John on her, and then we featured it in Healthy Living. So there's a picture of the 2 of them, with their 2 elbows, and her incision's like this, and then his incision is 3 times as big.
That's pretty cool.
So, but it is really restored. And the bad thing about it is now there's high school kids and young college kids that come up and their parents are there saying, "Oh, I want the Tommy John surgery because I know that this guy all came back from Tommy John and were great." But not everybody comes back, and so but it's become very effective, and we've created different techniques to make it way stronger than what Tommy had. But Tommy was amazing, and I'll plug Tommy now. He should be in the Hall of Fame because he came back and won like 200-something games after that. And I think a lot of people think that he's only famous because someone did surgery on him, and that's not true. I mean, he was an amazing pitcher.
Great talent.
Yeah.
Typically, if they name the surgery after you, it's not a good thing.
No, or a disease. Did Lou know it was coming?
Yeah.
He should have.
So good for Tommy John, because I think it worked out pretty well for him. So you just mentioned you're getting ready to retire officially. I know you've been talking about this for a while.
So I'm retiring from active practice, but really the biggest thing of the past 5 to 6 years for me has been helping develop the Mako shoulder replacement. And
this is a robotic surgery?
Robotic surgery. So back, I think 2014 or so, hips and knees, no, actually it's 20 years. So 2006 is when the first robotic knee replacement was done by Mako. Mako's the company, they got bought by Stryker. So our hospital, Eisenhower Medical Center, has more Mako robots than any hospital in the world.
Wow.
And because all of our hip and knee surgeons do robotic surgeries, and they won't do anything else because once you get really good with the robot, you don't want to do that. So the hip and knee came out first, and that's because there's more hips and knees done throughout the world and certainly in this country than shoulders. And then 6 years ago, so 2019, I signed on with Mako and Stryker to be one of the 6 surgeons to develop it. So we have a guy in Spain, a guy in Canada, 4 of us from the United States, one guy at the Mayo Clinic, and other places where we do a lot of them. So we've been working on developing the software, developing the technique, testing it all out at their lab in Fort Lauderdale for all these years, getting it through the FDA. And finally, in November, it got approved by the FDA. And at the last week of December, because the CEO wanted it done in 2024, 3 of us did the first robotic shoulders. So I've been doing robotic shoulders pretty much since then. I've now done 85. By the end of the year, it'll be over 135. And then so I'll transition to a consultant. I'm going to still help with design, still help with developing the next steps because there's more things that we can do with the robot. When you get things through the FDA, you have to kind of get your basic program through. Then you can start adding things on. So we're working on all those different things. I'll be doing a lot of teaching to surgeons. I'm having visiting surgeons come in now to watch me do the robotic surgery. And I'll probably continue that with Dr. Saban and Dr. Robotic, who are both getting trained in it, and then they're going to start doing robotic surgeries pretty soon.
I'm fascinated that you have done a lot of work in training physicians on their finances.
Well, no, I was on a financial podcast.
Oh, that was it?
Yeah. The focus actually...
All right, I'm not sure you should be a research department anymore.
It was an interesting episode.
Yeah. But the real reason, because all those guys are financial experts,
right.
And they're bringing on people that really know stuff about what to do financially. So the purpose of that was I had talked to the CEO of the company and everything, and it's about how to retire.
Right.
And not mostly financially, but how to prepare yourself to retire. And this is a huge problem in medicine. Doctors, we get a lot of satisfaction from our patients, right? So when your wife comes in and says, "Hey, look at my shoulder," I can go back and play golf. I can do things that I wanted to do and I couldn't do because I had a bad shoulder, bad knee, bad hip, whatever it is. That, builds your confidence. I mean, that's great. You cannot replace that. And so we talked about my transition to wine and how I've been studying wine and doing that. So I really feel strongly that when you retire, I'd say this for anybody, but certainly in medicine, you have to retire to something. You can't retire from something. The hard part about medicine is your ego and your identity is all wrapped up in who you are as a doctor. You spent all these hours and days and sacrifices for your family and you and all the other kind of to be who that you are. Very hard to give that up.
Yeah.
So if you don't have something to step into, you're going to have trouble. And that's why, I mean, the numbers of doctors who die within 5 years of retirement is much higher than the regular population.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Because golf may solve that for some people, but not a lot. And going and playing bridge and playing golf every day often is not enough for the guy who just had to replace somebody's hip or do a big spine surgery where you're looking at the whole spinal cord. It's just not there. So I got involved through a mentor many years ago who was an Air Force Academy grad, president of his class, smart guy, and he had followed in the pathway of wine. And so so I started learning about the education and what you have to do. And then,
how many years ago did you start?
So this is at least 15 years ago when the seed got planted.
By the way, that was the question I meant to ask.
Oh, okay.
The one he just answered.
Oh, you didn't want to ask him how he became a financial planner for doctors?
I did want to ask him.
What other things
no
would you like?
stock tips today.
Would you like to make up other stuff for Dr. St. Pierre? I mean, like, he's pretty accomplished. I don't think
Remember
we need
when you were an astronaut?
Yeah, tell us about that time you replaced a shoulder on the moon. But this is, you're talking about retiring to something. This is the second time, because when you leave the military, that's a big shift for a lot of people. And a lot of people, my cousin rose to the rank of captain in the Navy, and it was a big change for her when she left. I mean, she's doing somewhat similar work, but it's a big change for a lot of people. You have to find something else.
And when you retire as a captain or as a colonel, it's a lot easier because you're at that level of leadership that you can do that. But that's why we need to support veterans organizations and things to help people transition out of the military. I think that's a great topic. I'm glad you brought it up, because when you go and you're in Afghanistan, Iraq, and your job is to kill another human being, that's transitioning to a civilian world where you're counting numbers or you're doing, HR, whatever you're going to do is a tough transition for a lot of guys. And
we don't provide a lot of help with that.
No, and we should. I mean, because they have to be able to transition. That's why, they'll come back, and it's just that they're different people. And so that situation is much harder than what I had to go through, because I had a profession that I was already in. I'm just following on to the next profession. But now I'm making a bigger shift. I mean, I'm totally, and I think it's important that at least in my belief, is that if you shift to something totally different, it's going to challenge your brain more, right? So our brains need to be challenged or they turn to mush. Right. So learning wine, which is very complicated, and I started it. I got my first certification, and then I came out here and got busy with starting a practice, and then so then eventually, there's a couple of different pathways. There's the Wine and Spirits Education Trust, which is the foremost one, and there's 4 levels. So there's only 11,000 people in the world who have ever achieved level 4 since 1969.
Wow! When did you make level 4?
That was in 2021, and there's only one active surgeon in the world since 1969 who's ever achieved level 4. But now I just got back from Burgundy. I spent a week with a Master of Wine studying, so I took another test on become a Master of Bourgogne. So now I'm one of 175 people that are masters of just Burgundy. And I'm involved in a Burgundy group here, so that's kind of why that.
And so what does it mean as you go up a level? What does that mean you accomplished?
Well, it's more knowledge. And the top 2 tiers are Master of Wine or Master Sommelier. So if you've seen the movie Somm, some people have. So when that first came out, I was just getting started in this. And then I had friends come over and say, you need to watch this movie, because once you watch that movie, you'll never want to do this. So I watched the movie. I said, I can do that. So that intrigued me even more. But that's even a higher level than there's only like 300 Masters of Wine and Masters Sommeliers, and they're very involved in the industry. I wouldn't have even been eligible until you become part of the wine business. So, which brings me to the next thing. So in January of this year, I helped Bob and Jen Eigelhart open the Wine and Cheese Shop on El Paseo. So that's its focus is cheese, but also wine. So I'm the wine director, so I've selected the entire wine list. There are times when we'll do some events there, and I'll teach about wine because I enjoy the teaching part of it. And so right now, because it's the lull of the summer, we're working on our new wine list. But I've learned, because you have to buy through these distributors, there's all kinds of rules about how much you have to buy to get the discounts. So that part of the business world I'd never been involved in, so it's exciting to be able to learn all that.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
But the sommelier part of this, it's really difficult, especially to reach the level the blind tasting. Like, you spent a lot of time doing that. That must have been incredibly time consuming along with your regular job.
Okay, so level 4 is 5 tests in 1 paper. So there's 1 test, because I think, they want you to pass some of the tests because it keeps you throwing the money in. But that's a good point. But there's 1 test, it's Wines Around the World. It's a 2-day test. You have to blind taste 12 wines, and you have all these essays. And then when you get to level 4, there's no more multiple choice because they know you've already figured out all the multiple choice questions that you can ask about wine. So you have to be able to write in the British way, because this is all graded by the Brits in London and by the master of wines who've already done it. So actually, back to the hip story. So now I needed hip replacements. So I decided I had 1 hip replacement done, and then 6 weeks later, I had my 2nd hip done. So I could take 3 months off so I could study. So I studied 10 to 12 hours a day doing my hip rehab. So
how do you study?
Well, you can't do that.
I've been studying too.
The problem is, if you do that, then you only study for about an hour. Then you're wiped out, right? So I was kind of lucky because I did all the certification through the Napa Valley Wine Academy in Napa. And what I was scheduled to do was go up monthly. They would have this monthly or long weekend 3-day thing where you would sit in the classroom and you would study the knowledge, because you have to know the knowledge, right? And then you would do tastings that would be led by a master of wine and instructors to help people through. So there was probably about 18 in my class. The only good thing that came out of COVID was we couldn't go to Napa Valley. So then what they did was they shipped 3-ounce bottles, samples, and of all the different wines, and we would sit doing Zoom and tasting. You have to spit though. If you start drinking, you can't. So it's tasting.
So you've been practicing for something entirely different.
Yeah,
I've been spitting for years.
Yeah, but
there's
getting
so many different
drunk
directions we can go with that I'm going to focus on the good doctor.
Thank you.
So for 3 months, I was in my house. My Fitbit would go off every hour because I hadn't taken my steps. That would mean I had to do 5 minutes of exercise for my hip replacements. And then I would study and taste and do things. So it worked out. And then a month after, went back to work. Then I went and took my test. So I had it timed perfectly. And it was hard. But luckily I passed with merit, so it was good. Yeah.
Where, in your opinion, do the best wines in the world come from?
Well,
he better say Burgundy.
Yeah, you just said you finished the whole Burgundy thing.
Well,
so.
It's all a matter of taste. Yeah. And my wife, she doesn't mind me saying this because she knows it's true. She wants to drink big Cabs and Chardonnay, and every time I try to bring something different and to do that, because I need to taste everything, especially back then. She'd say, I don't like that. Give me, go back to that. So some people's tastes are just there, and they're not going to change. And that's okay. And then there are, but tasting different expressions of different wines, and certainly different wines from all around the world. And, it's one thing to say, okay, I can taste this, and I can definitely tell that's a Chardonnay. That's easy. And if you compare it to Sauvignon Blanc, that's easy. But, is this Chardonnay from Western Australia, or is it from Burgundy, or is it from Sonoma Coast or the Russian River Valley? That's when it gets really intriguing. And sometimes they think, well, wine tasters, say, okay, this is the 1976, blah, 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 and they don't always get that. And I've watched a lot of wine tastings with masters of wine, and most times, they'll get what it is, what the varietal is. They'll get a range of the age within 5 years. They'll get some of the production stuff, because it's if they're used oak, if it was stainless steel, how long it was aged. Some of those things will come pretty easily to people who have done it a lot. And you have to know the vocabulary.
Yeah.
But I saw one guy in a blind tasting, he had no clue, and he said, this is a 1993 from this vineyard in Australia that I visited 2 years ago, and he nailed it.
Really?
So, but there's a way to teach that. That's another thing. That's a whole memory thing. So, how to correlate that to an experience and the people you're with, so that you create a big picture in your brain to get, and then you can correlate that. If you just try to memorize, well, this is, whatever I'm drinking, and it's this and this, and then you'll forget that.
Yeah.
For you, I mean, obviously you must enjoy wine to embark on this, but do you get more fulfillment out of like the understanding and the knowledge, or just sipping the wine?
Well, that's a good question.
Because to me, it seems like you're very involved in the process.
Yeah, so I like the educational part of it, but I also like to teach. So just like in orthopedics, I've done hundreds of presentations on shoulder surgeries and different things, and I enjoy that. I'm going to keep teaching, robotic surgery until they kick me out. So the teaching part of it is fun, and same thing with wine. So when, we just did a wine and cheese event at one of the local assisted living places, and just talking to them and just teach them how to taste and what different experiences are, and ask them what they got out of it, and then trying to tell them or teach them how to kind of correlate the experience to the wine is fun. I mean, it's just, and when you see a light bulb go off in people's faces, that's great. Yeah.
All right, you told a story before we started actually recording about, because you had your hips done, but you needed your shoulder repaired.
Yes.
And you had a very specific method of choosing the person who ended up doing the surgery. Talk us through that. Tell us how you did that.
So, it's kind of more. So the rotator cuff is really what we're worried about,
Which is up on your shoulder.
It's the shoulder.
It's the four muscles that surround the shoulder. They do rotation, but their main job is just getting everything in space. And if you tear that, then it's if it's a small tear, we get many people through that with injections, rehabilitation. You can avoid surgery. Not everybody who has a tear needs surgery.
You got me through it. I had a little tear.
And because almost nobody over 50 has a normal MRI of their shoulder. And so if I operate on every rotator cuff tear I've seen, I'd never go to bed. So it's ubiquitous. It's out there. So we try to do the rehab and get people through. But I did, and initially my pain was really along my bicep, and the bicep goes into the shoulder right in between two of the cuff tears. And we know that if that ruptures, often people do well. We always tell the story. Brett Favre and John Elway both had terrible shoulder pain. Finally, they threw and they ruptured their bicep. Their pain went away. They both won Super Bowls and never had surgery on it. So an isolated bicep is okay, right? So I'm thinking it's bicep. So I'm going home, and I don't want to take the time off from practice to have surgery, recover, all that kind of stuff. So now I'm doing biceps curls, trying to rupture my bicep.
So actually trying to rupture
exactly what a doctor would tell you to do.
Yeah. Actually, I usually don't do that, but
I punch myself in the face a whole bunch of times. And
so anyway, it didn't rupture, but and finally I get the MRI, and I didn't want to get the MRI because I didn't want to know the answer. Right? So once you get the MRI, so don't ask the question if you don't want to know the answer. So I get the MRI, and sure enough, I got a tear. So and then my bicep is like shredded. So I take the MRI, and I go to a shoulder and elbow meeting, and they're all my friends from all over the country. And so I told everybody, because this is a 64-year-old, very active guy who has this MRI. What are you going to do for it? And I showed them, and it was amazing. I had many of my really good friends say different things. To open surgery, one a replacement, and then finally a guy. But he was at the top of my list already. But so Eamon Ferry, who's an orthopedic surgeon in Scottsdale, takes care of the Arizona Diamondbacks. I showed him my MRI, and he said exactly how I would have fixed it. So I said, "You're hired. That's my MRI." And then so it worked.
None of them knew it was your MRI until
No. That was, that's if they knew it was me, they would buy what they did.
Right, of course.
So, but then some of the bias was already there. Like some guys in the end, because I said, "You're an idiot. There's no way I'd do that." And they said, "Well, I thought that's what you were thinking," So, but so anyway, that's how I got it. He did a great job. Recovered, came back, and did more surgery.
So you were the medical director for the tennis tournament. Mm-hmm. You were the head physician of the Firebirds. What does that look like? What did you have to do at the tennis tournament?
So, tennis tournament, we have both tours, and the way it's set up at Indian Wells is that we have a doctor's office in between the two training rooms, and the trainers. So each tour has their own set of trainers. Right? The top 20 or 30 have their own trainers, and their own staff and nutritionists, because they have enough money they can build their cadre. But everybody else has to, use the tour. But the tour trainers are amazing. And they're their continuity, because every single place they go to, they get a different doctor, right? Now, having done it for 15 years, they all know us. And so they're very happy to see familiar faces. So that's something that we had, because Steve Steele has been doing it for 5 years or before.
Were there ever any significant injuries?
Yeah. So, but yeah, we see everything. So for those 2 weeks, all these players go to Australia in January. Then they go all over the world. They catch whatever they can catch, and then they come back here. And then, so there's all kinds of snivels and diseases and stuff. And we had one that we had about 15 people had to pull out because of a respiratory illness and diarrheal illnesses. And but then we take care of the back strains, the shoulder strains, a lot of abdominal injuries in tennis, ankle stuff, and then work with the trainers in each one to fix it. But and for me, the biggest thing was the year that Taylor Fritz won.
Oh, he beat Nadal.
And he beat Nadal.
Yeah.
So,
and Nadal was having some problems physically.
We can talk about that because it's all out. Because on Netflix, so normally we can't talk about anything.
Well, of course,
right?
Yeah.
And every year I go on Tennis Channel and do a little spurt, and we talk about the weather, we talk about different things. But I could never say, well, Djokovic has this. You can't do that. So, but for this one, Netflix was doing their show Breakpoint, and so if anybody wants to go see it, session 3 or
and it was all about
episode 3 was
Indian
all
Wells.
about Indian Wells, and Maria Sakurai and Taylor. So Taylor had this big thing. So we saw Taylor, and you could see the night before when he won the semifinals, he twisted his ankle, but he hung on. He had to win 2 points, and he did. And so all that adrenaline, he never came in afterwards, because we hang around until all the players have gone home and to make sure that they're okay. Never came in and said, I did okay. Next day he comes in and tries to go out and practice to warm up, and he drops to the floor. He couldn't put any pressure on it. Comes back in, and they've got the whole Netflix videos, right? So I spent probably 45 minutes with Taylor and his dad and his team trying to figure out what to do. And the problem was he was supposed to be on the court in 2 hours. We had no time to get an MRI, which is what everybody would have done. And so I examined him, and I could tell there wasn't something structurally wrong, that he would go out and hurt himself more, with the exception of he could have a cartilage injury. He could have there's definitely things that could have been bad. I said, there's nothing here that we can do. So that shows that. So I said, well, we could do just a lidocaine injection. We could do it. Can't do it in the joint. You can do it outside. I said, well, I think it's your capsule in the back. Let's do a lidocaine injection and see how you do. So I injected with lidocaine. He goes out to practice, comes back. He says, I'm 80% better. I want to go out. Because
he thought he was going to have to pull out that morning.
Oh,
right?
well, see, on social media, everybody thought, because his girlfriend is posting all over the world, that he can't walk, he's terrible, he's all this kind of stuff. And then Rafa's team is also seeing all that. So, like Rafa's team, they walk by, how's the guy doing? And
sorry about that.
And Rafa had a rib injury, right. And so I really believe, I've never had Rafa tell me this, but that he was thinking, okay, I might have to just go out for a game or two. He wants to make a show because all these people spend this money. They dedicate all the time to go see this final. You hate to pull out and not do anything, right? So he felt good enough. And then I went and I injected again in the same place with Marcaine, which is a longer acting lidocaine type of thing. And by the time he got on the court, he was 100%. And before you knew it, he's up 4-love in the first set.
Right.
And then Rafa's stuff started hurting. We had to take him off the court and treat him too. So I'm the only person in the world who has ever injected a player who went on to beat Rafa Nadal. And since he's retired, I don't know what it
That's awesome. That's such a great story.
Nor the only one who's ever injected somebody who actually went out and won a championship. So
we were at that match, and you could tell they were both just kind of in pain at different times.
Yeah. Well, the night before, he certainly was. And then luckily, thank God for me, is he got an MRI afterwards, and everything was fine.
And you were right.
I was right. Knock on wood.
So with the Firebirds, is it just gaps in the teeth?
Oh, we get all that.
He's not the team dentist.
No, we do have a team dentist. We have an oral maxillofacial surgeon. But all the same, you got tons of back injuries, abdominal injuries, groin injuries. There's, almost anything you can do. You're obviously, we're more involved in hockey because of the violence of the sport, So, and that was fun. It was great to be in the initial 2 years. But now that I'm retiring, and so I'm not going to practice after January 1, I've turned that over to Matt Diltz, and he's now the head of sports medicine, orthopedics, and he's been taking care, and he's doing a great job.
I always ask a lot of our guests from this point, from you grew up in this town, you've done all of these things. Is there any part of you as an adult now that just can't believe what you've seen? But I suspect when you've been in the DMZ, that kind of stuff just doesn't drive you anymore. Yeah, so I'm not going to ask that question.
Well, what a remarkable story. And thanks for coming in and sharing with us. And you must be looking forward to the next chapter.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a lot of fun. And so I'm sort of retiring, but I'm not retiring. And I'll build on the wine thing. So I really haven't really figured all that out yet. I'm waiting for that nudge to get me in the right direction. Yeah. But, it'll probably involve teaching. I'm also now in my first year of a 3-year program to judge wines. So with the American Wine Society, I've got my first year test in November, so I got to fly out to Virginia and take that test. But I'll probably do judging because that would be fun.
Have you grown any?
No, that's a job. That's work. We were tempted, but there's especially at this point, I'd rather talk about it, teach, do that type of thing.
Yeah. And, as a pioneer in the robotic shoulder surgery thing, I mean, that's a legacy that will...
Yeah,
he's got like 19 legacies.
I know. That's what I said. Guys like him make me really mad.
But it's just, in the right... But there's plenty of failures. I don't want... life has not been sugar-coated all the way. There are times I wanted to do something and I failed at it, and then you looked around the corner and then there's something else. So that's why you got to listen to it. And I know I'm going to do the wine. I know I'm going to teach. I know I'm going to judge. But, am I going to do podcasts? Am I going to write on the internet? Because the whole world has gone to that, right? We're not... no one's writing books anymore or doing anything like that. Right. And then there's travel, so traveling to these different places and teaching, another thought, actually before COVID, my wife's plan was for me to go on cruises and, teach, do wine sessions. And
I thought it was a shoulder surgery.
No. Well, that could,
on the Princess Cruise.
But but you can do that, and then there's always 2 settings for dinner, so you can eat at your own, and on the second one you're walking around talking to people and do that. And then if they need a sports medicine shoulder or robot talk, I'll do that too.
A lot of people injure themselves doing shuffleboard. He's had to fix a lot of those guys.
He had a bocce accident.
It's mostly because they're not spinning.
Well, Dr. St. Pierre, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
This was everything I was hoping it was going to be.
Oh, yeah.
This is very cool.
Really good. Really terrific. Well, thank you, Randy. Great job.
Thank you.
Your research was
Glad to see you again. Yeah, it was almost good. Yeah. Oh, look, Eisenhower's calling me. I got to run.
Our guest, Dr. Patrick St. Pierre, and of course, our producer, John McMullen. Thank you, sir. Outstanding work. We thank you all for listening. And of course, you can subscribe so you never miss another edition of Big Conversations, Litte Bar.
Big Conversations, Little Bar is a production of the Mutual Broadcasting System. This podcast is available in audio and video format. Visit our website at www.bigconversationslittle.bar.com. New episodes are released every Monday.
Athletes and dreamers, stars of the screen, leaders and builders, and all in between, sharing their journeys, how they've come this far. It's Big Conversations, Little Bar, at Big Conversations.